Have you ever felt unseen, unheard, or unimportant? Well, hey students, if you guys don't know me, my name is Hannah and I'm the Director of Students at the Oregon campus. And I know we might have just met for the first time, but I'll let you guys know a secret about me. I felt unseen, I felt unheard, and I felt unimportant before. And if we're honest with ourselves, I think we've all been there before. At a time, we've probably all wondered, does it matter if I'm here? Does anyone care what I think? Does anyone notice what I have to say? And would anyone notice if I even left? When we don't feel seen or valued by people in our lives, it starts to make us feel like we don't matter. And when we feel like we don't matter, it takes the passion and the excitement out of our lives. We begin to feel like we're just surviving through life and not thriving. And nobody wants to feel that way. Now, for some of you, there might be people in your life that show you and tell you that you matter, not only to them, but to God. While for other of you, it's rare to even hear that you matter at all. Whether you hear this message a lot or hardly at all, it can be hard for all of us to actually believe that we matter to God. Throughout the series, we're celebrating Easter, which is the biggest day for the followers of Jesus, because it's a day we celebrate Jesus' resurrection. That's right, when he came back from the dead. But more specifically, we're talking about the people who actually encountered Jesus after his resurrection and had a completely different life after they saw him. Today I want to talk about one of those people named Mary Magdalene, not his mom, his friend, who, like many of us, had a hard time believing that she mattered. You see, Mary was an OG follower of Jesus, and even though she became a good friend of Jesus, it was still difficult for her to believe that she mattered because of her sinful past and because she was looked down on by the culture around her. You see, Mary understood what it meant to be ignored and overlooked, because she had always been the outcast before she encountered Jesus. Once she encountered Jesus, she began following him and became one of the most loyal followers. Mary was there when Jesus was put on the cross. She was there and attended his burial, and she was even the first person to see Jesus when he was resurrected. There was no other disciple around more than Mary was in the big moments of Easter, but she doesn't get a whole lot of attention for it. You might think at first, Mary was a side character in the story of Easter, but really, she was a main character. She was super duper important to the story. The Gospel of John, which was written by another one of Jesus' disciples, records that on Easter Sunday, while it was still dark, Mary got up and she went to the tomb. She found the stone was gone and the tomb was empty. She assumed someone had messed with his grave and took his body out. Here's what John says happened next. Now Mary stood outside the tomb and crying. As she wept, she bent over and looked into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other one at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? They have taken away my Lord," she says, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't realize that was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're looking for?" Thinking that it was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "For I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. So on that day, Jesus defeated death, proving God's love is bigger and stronger than anything else. You know what's cool about that too? Is that he made sure that Mary was there for that. And this is a big deal because in the first century, when Jesus lived, a woman was not seen as a reliable witness. She couldn't testify in court, her word was not trusted over any man's, and yet, over and over again in the Gospels, at the cross, at the tomb, and on Easter morning, it was a woman who saw Jesus first, who recognized him, and who was given the job of telling others. When the rest of the world saw women as unreliable, inferior, and untrustworthy, Jesus saw something completely different. He valued and elevated them when the rest of the world didn't. Jesus made the decision to trust Mary with his resurrection. He knew Mary and called her by her name. He chose her to be the first person to share the good news with. While others made assumptions about Mary because of her gender, her past, or really anything else written about her, Jesus wrote her as a major character. Jesus made sure Mary knew that she had value and that her word could be trusted. When the world was sending Mary one message, Jesus sent her another. And if Mary wondered who she could believe, the resurrection of Jesus gave Jesus all the credibility in the world. So no matter what messages others may have been giving Mary, no matter what messages we may be getting, because of the resurrection, we can take what Jesus says seriously. And Jesus said Mary mattered. Because of the resurrection, Mary knew that she mattered too. At Easter, we celebrate something that happened 2,000 years ago, but that day changed the world. Because of the first Easter morning, it changed the lives of people who knew Jesus best. Because now, everything Jesus had said meant more than it did before. Easter morning, Jesus coming back from the dead proved that Jesus was who he said he was, and that his word mattered. That morning, he spoke words telling all of us about Mary's value and worth. In a culture where Mary would have heard again and again that she wasn't enough, she didn't have any credibility, and that she would have to stay on the edge where she belonged, Jesus made sure the message that she got from him was different. And the same is true for you and me. See, just like Mary mattered to Jesus, so do you. When he said her name, he said your name too. He said the name of people who feel overlooked, unseen, and forgotten. He said the name of people who feel like our part in the story doesn't matter. Because of Easter and because of the resurrection, Mary knew what Jesus said could be taken seriously. She experienced Jesus' word firsthand and what he did firsthand. And then she passed on the good news to the rest of the disciples. We are here today celebrating Jesus coming back to life because Mary carried the message back to Jesus' followers. This Easter, that's the message I want you to take with you. You are seen, you are known, and you are loved. And so, so important. Jesus says so. Easter is a reminder that we can take Jesus seriously. He defeated sin and death and rose from the dead. We can trust what he says, and Jesus says Mary mattered. Jesus says that you matter and the people around you matter too. When we live like that is true, our lives look a whole lot different, and the lives of people we interact with look different too. I want you to think about how you treat yourself and others. Do you believe that you matter? Do you live like it? What would you change in your life if you really believe that you matter to God? And because of that, the people around you matter as well. Today, as you talk with your small group, I want you to think about what could change in your life if you believed that you matter to God. Because of the resurrection, Mary knew that she mattered. And because of the resurrection, you know that you matter too.